Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And if it's okay with you, I would like to continue on with the wonderful viewer questions that you so very kindly submitted to this channel a few months back. And that brings us to the next question, which is from Callum Chung. So hello Callum, my dear friend. It's always nice to hear from you and to see you. I hope you are well as always. And your question is, what are some of your favorite movies from Hong Kong? Thank you very much for the wonderful question, Callum. I believe we have spoken somewhat about some cinema from Hong Kong, for instance, in the context of discussions of Criterion Collection releases. For example, we spoke about the films of Wong Kar-wai in the context of that Criterion set release. We also spoke about Bruce Lee films in the context of that Criterion set release. We've also spoken on this channel, for instance, about some other titles that used to be in the Criterion Collection. For example, John Woo films The Killer and Hard Boiled. But I admit too that we haven't spoken about other Hong Kong films or other examples of the great cinema of Hong Kong as much as I would like. And while my expertise is not as in-depth as many other fantastic experts on the cinema of Hong Kong and this particular part of the world, I have been a fan of a number of works from Hong Kong, from, say, when I was a kid or when I was in college or student or immediately afterwards. And so I would be able to get access to some of these films. My access was still somewhat limited. And I think now we're living in a type of golden age where access is becoming even more far-reaching. And so we can get titles that were perhaps a little bit difficult to get previously. I speak, for instance, of some of the, Shaw Brothers studio titles that you can get through, say, the great label 88 Films, like Flying Guillotine or Mighty Peking Man and The Oily Maniac and things of that sort. And also, as of now, this video, I'm very excited, for instance, with the Arrow video upcoming release of the Shaw Brothers studio films. I think it's going to be a volume 1 set, so I'm very excited for that as well. So this is an indication, for example, of a lot of films that perhaps are getting much more, becoming much more accessible as we get into, as I say, a furtherance into this golden age of physical media and film accessibility. So it's very exciting, and part of that is, as I'm mentioning here, the works of, or the cinema of Hong Kong. If I could speak to, for instance, my own, say, growing up or my own cinema journey as a youth and going into my young adulthood, and the films that I encountered that I really loved, and these would be films like, say, from the maybe the 80s and early 90s period. And so I was able to watch films like, say, Chinese Ghost Story or God of Gamblers. I spoke a little bit about John Woo and Killer and Hard Boiled, but and I still remember the first time I saw Hard Boiled. It was this just explosion of the senses, and it was so sensory, and it was incredibly rich and unbelievable what was going on. And that led me to discover films like A Better Tomorrow, and I absolutely fell in love with the look and feel and atmosphere of films like A Better Tomorrow. So that was a really important chapter early on in my cinema journey, as it were. And a little bit later in my maybe in my early adulthood period, I discovered other films as well. For instance, I remember I was living in New York at the time, and there was this video store called Kim's Video, and I was able to rent from Kim's Video the great film Infernal Affairs. and that was such a fun time, because I rented it and I just watched it over and over and over again. It was so fascinating to me. And this was, if I recall correct, this was prior to the release of The Departed, but it was just so electrifying and fascinating, a type of labyrinthian maze of confusion and deception. It was exciting and high octane and very much suspenseful and the like. So that was a big deal. A little bit later on, that was a really big deal. And let's see here. I think also there were so many. Again, let's see. I think also, yes, I should mention too. There is one particular favorite of mine that I think has gotten some more physical media releases of late. But the one that was a true eye-opener for me when I first saw it is, and I just watched it over and over again, it's a real huge cult classic in many respects. And this is Riki-Oh, the story of Riki. This film is a type of wonder. It is an over-the-top, violent, massacre epic classic of the highest caliber. There are scenes that are so grotesque, so grand guignol, so over the top, it boggles the mind. And there is also this sense of comedic timing and spirit, which is also intense. And it is like a comic book that is having its pages just splashed with foam latex and flesh and blood, and the almost maniacal nature of this particular story. It is just an over-the-top classic. And so I remember seeing that for the first time it would have been maybe my teenage years. And so it was very funny and very gross, and it was just so inventive in terms of the outgrossness factor to it. I mean, how far could it go in terms of the inventiveness of the various machinations of flesh and blood and special effects? But my goodness, it certainly goes there, and every time it goes there, just raises the level to the nth degree and the nth degrees, to the point where just it just explodes in this climactic ball of energy and zaniness. It's truly one of a kind work. And so, oh my goodness, one of these days I would love the opportunity to speak in more detail about the story of Riki. And I'm a big fan in particular of the English dub of that. I remember seeing the English dub of that, and it was so very unique, and there were some wonderful quirks of dialogue choice. Tetsuo Tamba as well is in there. He has a very memorable role as the uncle, sort of a type of avuncular figure for the main character. And so there's a lot of machismo at play. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of duels to the death done in this very almost surrealistic atmosphere. Very, very surrealistic. And so maybe one of these days we can talk more about the story of Riki-Oh. But in any event, my friends, I don't want to monopolize the conversation any further, so I apologize. But Callum, thank you so much for this. As you can see, I'm not in any way the biggest expert, but I am a fan of many sort of landmark moments in Hong Kong cinema. And I should really try to speak a little bit more about this if I have the opportunity. But let me now turn the question to you and to everyone else. So what are some examples of your favorite films from Hong Kong? I would really love to get your responses. So Callum and my dear friends, thank you so much as always for your time. I very much appreciate it. And please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much as always, and cheers.